My name is Mike Shepard. I'm the superintendent of the school district, and I'll be talking a little bit this evening about our bond issue initiative. I'm going to basically tell you the story of how we got to where we are today and some of the things that are going to be involved in our 4.2 mil bond issue 107 when we're successful in November. I also want to introduce Ryan Gazzoni. Ryan is our treasurer, and he'll also speak a little bit this evening about some of the financial picture of the school district. And then once we're done with the presentation, we're going to allow anyone just to ask questions. If you have questions that you want to be able to ask us regarding the bond issue, this is a great time to do it. If you're not comfortable doing that during this meeting, that's okay too. Please feel free to contact me directly over at the board office. You can either call me, you can send me an email, and I'll make sure that we get back to you with the answer to your question as quickly as we can. So first of all, I think it's just important to say thank you. Thank you that you're here, that you're interested in what we're trying to get accomplished. The goal of us at this point in time when it comes to the school district is to just get the facts out to our community, our entire school community. And then in November, people are going to make their own choice, right? Whether or not they're going to be willing to support the school district in this initiative or not. But what we don't want is we don't want people to go to the ballot or to fill out their ballot if they're doing it from home with inaccurate information. So the first thing I want to talk about is how did we get here? So the school district for several years has experienced a decline in enrollment. It is nothing new to us. We have been looking at enrollments every single year for probably the last 15 to 20 years. I have been actually involved in that for at least the last 10. And we used to contract that out with a company that did that, and they looked at census data and live birth information. And now we actually have the software in-house to be able to track our projected enrollment. And as you can see, that we began in 2004 with just over 7,500 students, and that continued to decline to where we are in 2015. We had 6,423 students, and I can tell you this year we're about 6,200 students. With anticipating hopefully leveling off in the year 2020 around 5,800 students. Now, that is not just about the Berea City schools. That is what's happened in Northeast Ohio. There has been an enrollment decrease in the city of Cleveland. There have been enrollment decreases with first-ring school districts. There are some bubble communities, and we all know where they are, where there's new homes going up. The Avon Lakes, and North Ridgevilles, where they continue to see an increase in enrollment. But that's not our case at this point in time. So in 1972, when we had 17,000 students, we were the third largest in the county. Today, we still are the third largest in the county. It goes Cleveland, Parma, and then the Berea City School District. There could be a point in time where we no longer will be in that spot, but right now that's where we sit. So this was one of the factors, and this was a driving force behind our consolidation as well. When we went to the consolidation of one high school a few years back, it was regarding money, and it was also trying to address our enrollment issues. We didn't need the same number of facilities that we had because we just didn't have the same number of students. And that's where we are today. This is one of the issues that came up as we were exploring what to do when it comes to our facilities. We don't need the same number of facilities that we have today. We shouldn't be spending dollars on buildings that we don't need to be spending dollars on when we can be spending those dollars on kids and resources for our students. The other thing that drove the conversation, and this began probably 6 months ago, where we had a lot of conversations about where we were financially to operate the school district. And just so everyone understands, we have an operating fund, and that operating fund right now, we are doing fine. That is to pay the day-to-day bills. That's our salaries and utility and buying new resources for our kids and for our teachers. That part of the operation of the school district is stable. So we wouldn't even be having this conversation if that wasn't the case. So once we knew that was the case, we started to look at our facilities, and we knew we had significant needs. We have a permanent improvement levy that generates about $900,000 a year for us. Now that's not enough money for our school district to take care of all of our facilities. But to make things worse, we needed to borrow against the $900,000 to make some changes and renovations just to keep our doors open in the last several years, and to buy school buses, and to buy some equipment to maintain our facilities. So annually, right now, we receive that $900,000, but we have to pay back on those loans, so we get about $400,000 a year to use towards maintaining all of our facilities. We used to spend $400,000 a year just on asphalt work. And if you have kids in the district, or if you traveled in our parking lots over the last several years, you would clearly see that we have some challenges. You could probably see them out there now, where there are potholes all over the place. Probably the worst in the district was over at Brookview, where kids were getting dropped off for preschool, and our buses went through to drop off students. We had some issues, some major issues here at the high school. For several months last year, we had cones in this drop-off area in the front, and cars needed to avoid those cones, and if they didn't, they were going to have some damage to their car. So we know we don't have enough money to take care of all of our facility needs. Let me just, if you can go back one. So these pictures, I also just want to make sure people understand, these are not made up, these are now. These are real pictures. And these are pictures that are happening, situations that are happening across the district. This is Middlebrook Education Center, which is right now, part of that building is being leased for an adult autism program. It's not being currently used for our classroom space, but that will become part of our plan, as I shared just in a few minutes. This is downstairs here in the boiler room, in the mechanical room. We held several building tour days, and we had people have the ability to go throughout the building and see in multiple buildings across the school district to see some of the challenges that we face. So if we can go to the next one, Christine, thanks. These are actual pictures again here at the high school. If you had an opportunity to do the tour, you would have seen on the front of the hallway here, the front hallway, which is currently our math hallway, we have barrels that are up against the wall with bags that are directing water because of leakage from the second floor, which is not ideal for our kids. But you can see these leaks are happening in our stairwells and in ceilings throughout the district. Even though the sports center was relatively new, it's not that new anymore, and it has its own challenges. So again, these are pictures from Brookview, from Ford, BPM. BPM, in many of their classrooms, we have some challenges with windows. Ford, that's a control panel from when that building was built. And actually, if you go up onto the stage where people used to do performances, we have one of the oldest, when you turn the lights on, systems that are up there. We no longer really use that for big performances because we have the auditorium there. The other thing I think it's important, BPM, a couple of stories to go along with what our challenges are. You may have seen a couple years ago, Channel 19, Channel 8, Channel 3 showed up because one of our boilers went down over at Brook Park Memorial. Classrooms are really cold. We had kids having to wear jackets, and that building has two boilers. The one was completely gone, which created a very unique challenge for us to have to do an emergency purchase through to get that building up to where it needed to be for heat during the middle of the winter. And then we had to replace a second boiler as well in that building. We had, last year, we had over at Middleborough Heights Junior High School, I don't know if we have any pictures of that, we had a pipe burst. It was a water heat system, and water goes all over the place, steam goes all over the place. Fire alarm goes off in the middle of the winter. We have 1,500 students standing outside when it's extremely cold. And those fixes are not easily, they're not fixed overnight. We had to relocate students for several weeks to get that ready for kids to go back into those classrooms. So what happened was we started to have conversations. The board had conversations, the administration gathered information, we worked with the Ohio Schools Facilities Commission, which came into our district several times, and they assess all of our buildings, and they tell us how much it would really cost to either do a complete renovations to get the buildings up to where they needed to be, or how much it would cost to build new schools. And through gathering that information, and then also knowing with our own information that we had $14 million worth of immediate repairs. And you can go on our district website underneath the treasurer's link, and underneath there there's very specific information about what needs to be repaired. You can actually get to that information if you go onto our main site and look at issue 107, and on the description of that it says $14 million worth of repairs. You click on that and it will tell you every single thing that needs to be repaired in the school district. So having that information in front of us, the board said, we want you to come back with what you think is a viable plan for the school district. We worked on that, we came back. Then the board said, well, now that you have this plan, it's important for you to go out to the community and start to share these ideas with the understanding that this may not be the final plan. So what we did is we went out and went to community forums. We had community forums here, we had a community forum over at Ford Intermediate School, we had a community forum over at Middleborough Heights Junior High School. We did some presentations to our city councils, we met with community leaders, and we said here was our best thinking. And what we learned was that we got some really great ideas from the forums, and our original plan changed. It changed in a big way when it came to what we were going to be doing in the city of Brook Park when it came to providing an elementary school for our preschool through 4th grade students. Original plan said that we were going to renovate Ford Intermediate School into a pre-K through 4 building. And that in itself would have been a challenge. We already knew exactly what that cost was, and then we also know exactly how much it costs to build a brand new school. That was one of the recommendations that came out of our forums. Another recommendation is how we work with our 5th through 8th grade students, which I'll talk about in a minute. So after all the forums, we came back and we had further discussions and we developed our plan. Our plan is that we're going to construct a brand new high school on the current property. A high school that will be built on this property behind this school while our kids continue to go to school here. Now that is an advantage when it comes to a construction project. An example of having to create transition space is right down the street in Lakewood. Lakewood has 42 trailers and have had 42 trailers for at least 10 years. Okay, that's a cost because they had phases of their project. We don't have to do that. We'll be able to build this project. We'll start that as soon as we can after our election planning, and the goal is to complete that in the year 2020. So we'll be able to build that building right here on this piece of property. Once that is complete, we'll be able to remove the existing facility and create some additional green space and parking, which you'll see in a video of the renderings of that building. We're going to also relocate our 5th and 6th grade students by renovating our, right now, Middleborough Heights Junior High School into a middle-level complex. Now, I showed you a picture earlier of Middlebrook Education Center. That's on the same campus as our current junior high school. And our plan is to do significant renovations to that building. HVAC, complete HVAC systems. We'll be looking at roofs, doors, windows, some asphalt work, some landscaping, and then we'll be connecting the 2 learning environments. Middlebrook Education Center will be connected to the current junior high school. I try to let people know because I think we have a picture up here of what that looks like. That is not one long hallway. You have to picture that as classroom space, hallway, classroom space, hallway into the existing facility. That building, Mac, is going to hold our 5th grade students. and the new classrooms that are put on there will hold our 5th grade students. That needs some significant renovations, windows, doors, air conditioning, all of that needs to be put into MEC. Now, one of the nice things about Middlebrook Education Center, there is actually some sections of that building that work really well with today's thinking when it comes to learning environments. So we'll be able to capitalize on those spaces. And then our 5th grade students will have access to the facility that will hold our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And again, with all those renovations, it would be difficult for anyone to find a middle school building in this state or across the country that have the resources the students that are in this district will have. That building has a planetarium, sports center, auditorium, gymnasium, cafeteria, swimming pool, amazing resources for our kids. And through all those renovations, that building will be available for our kids for many, many years because of the investment. The next piece of this is that we are planning on building a brand new elementary school in the city of Brook Park. That building will be built on the Ford Intermediate School campus, which is a very large piece of property on Holland Road. That can be built behind the existing building if we feel as though, if we need to make that happen. And I say that because we may actually be able to transition our 5th and 6th grade students out of the building at the same time that the construction project would be started on that property. If we don't, then we'll be able to actually build that behind that building if we need to. That building will be for our preschool through 4th grade students that live in the city of Brook Park. It will have all the state-of-the-art facilities that our kids deserve. Up-to-date technology. It will be attached to the auditorium that already exists there, which is a great resource for the school and great resource for the community. You will also, it would be hard to find an elementary school in the state that has an auditorium that seats 850 people. That is a great facility for our kids. Now, I'll also show you renderings of that, and people will see that there, it's a 1 level. Someone asked me today, why is it a 1 level? Why isn't it a 2 or 3 story building? Why doesn't it mirror something like Grindstone? Because they talked about the energy efficiency of that kind of building. These are renderings. This is not the actual building. And that, when we get to constructing buildings, it takes a year to do the planning. And that'll be all part of the conversation. But we want people to see what the possibilities are of those buildings on those pieces of property. The other piece of that is we have 2 buildings over there, Brook Park Memorial and Brookview, that will close. That Brook Park Memorial is on Holland across from Ford, and Brookview is on Snow Road. I don't know how to describe it, but it's quite a ways down on Snow Road past the Giant Eagle and all that on the right-hand side. A couple other bits of information in this project. We are going to do renovations to Big Creek Elementary School. It needs HVAC, windows, doors, and some security changes. It's one of the schools that we currently have where kids, parents, or community members can actually get into the building once they're buzzed directly into the school, which is different than what you find in a lot of new buildings where when you come in, you buzz, you go through the office first before you have access to any of the hallways where or classrooms where our kids are. That also needs some asphalt work, and as I mentioned before, HVAC, it is, and particularly this year, where it was a very hot summer and we had some very hot days in the fall, where it was not ideal for our kids in some of the classrooms on the 2nd floor. That building in Brookview, in some of the classrooms here at the high school, are the worst that we have across the district. And then we're going to save have some of the funds, not a lot of the money, aside so that we can just do minor renovations or upkeep work to Grindstone. Even though that building is new, it'll probably be close to 9 years old when this project is all completed in 2020. And just like a new house, a new building, there are challenges to that we just need to make sure that we're staying on top of. Whether that's asphalt work or sidewalk work or interior type things that need to be, a little bit of money is put into that. Not a lot. But we want to make sure people know that because, once this is all said and done, someone says, why are you putting money into Grindstone? We want to make sure everyone understands that there will be some money set aside for Grindstone. The other thing that I thought was really important for people to realize when we went out to the forums, the community said to us a couple things, because the original plan also had some money that was going to be set aside to maybe build a new board office someplace, and it was really clear in the forums, like people were not for that at all, right? They said, if we're going to give you the money, we want the money to go to kids, and we get that. So that actually got pushed out of the project. Doesn't mean that that doesn't have its own challenges, nor our transportation department, our maintenance department, they do. But the dollars in this project are going to be used towards our kids. All right, so what does this plan look like? And we have some videos that I think will be able to show you exactly what you'll be able to see once this is complete. So the street up top there, that's the highway. That's not the actual name of the school, just so people know that also. We just wanted to get something on there. I think that's just an incredible facility for our elementary students, preschool through 4th grade. Again, that's on that piece of property in the city of Brook Park. It will have all of the things, the latest technology that is currently in a lot of the new buildings that have been built across the state, for our teachers to have access to creative presentation boards, and then our students having the most recent up-to-date technology, because our kids nowadays, resources aren't all paperback or books. Our kids use a lot of digital programming as well. I was in a classroom the other day where students were working on a project on identifying animals and picking animals. And you know, the old days when I went to school, and you used to go look through and get pictures, so you go to the library and get pictures. It's not happening that way anymore. Our kids actually go online, they can click on the information, they can click on the picture, it tells them all about the animal, tells them their history, all the things that I think are just amazing for our kids to be able to learn. This is the high school. Again, this is the possibilities, right? This is what can be for our kids. That's Bagley Road we're on. We're actually right there. This is the front of the building. The existing building is in the front where those sidewalks go in. This is Eastland. That little building in the, oops, just gonna go there. Okay, here we are again. We're on Bagley. You can see a majority of the parking is in the front for our students and our staff, and then we have some additional parking in the back. The buildings are designed where there is not one main cafeteria. This building is where we have cafes, which is a much more current structure for high school students, multiple places to go and get something to eat. That small building over here on the right, that's the new natatorium. As I mentioned before, we're not going to lose resources. We're just going to have the exact same, if not more, gymnasium here. You can see on the sides, it's a 3-story building, 2-story hallways on the glass in between the buildings. The design of the building also allows for sections to be closed down if in the evening a certain section of that building wanted to be utilized, which is not the case now. It's an incredible facility that allows us to be creative in what we think is necessary for today's learners. Our kids learn totally different today. Right, you walk around this high school, we have 900 square foot rooms that seat 28 max probably, and kids don't learn that way anymore, right? Because technology is now fully integrated in society, it's fully integrated in schools. Project-based learning happens all over the place. We have some unique programs here at the high school that are biomedical courses and pre-engineering courses. Those learning environments are small group instruction. Maybe you have a class that seats 10 to 15. Maybe you have another class that you want to have 40. Right? We need to have that flexibility for the learning spaces. The other thing that I've already mentioned in our elementary that would happen in this high school is technology would be completely integrated. Right? That means that when we have kids on their computers now, and we have like too many kids on our computers now, which we don't have, like at the high school. We don't have computers for kids like a lot of schools do. We have some. We don't have a lot. Where if we had so many kids get on, the system would go down. And it's just not here, it's across the district. This is exciting to me, right? Because, and I've said this all along when I'm out doing these presentations, I've done these presentations when it comes to trying to get additional revenue for operating, which is just part of what we have to do based on how we are funded. That is not as exciting. This is motivating. What we can provide our kids is amazing, and what we should provide our kids. This isn't free. We know that, right? This is going to cost us $112.5 million. That's 4.2 mils. And you can see how it's broken down. 40 cents a day for a $100,000 home, $2.83 a week, $12.25 a month, or $147 a year. To me, right, and this is why we're out here doing it, this is a great investment. It's a great investment for our children, and it's a great investment for our community. The other piece of this that is really also beneficial to the school district, we will go down in the number of facilities. We will spend less money. Ryan can talk a little bit more in detail about where we are with our entire budget and how we have been able to balance our budget, and then he can talk about where the $2.1 million in savings happens.
A consolidation plan is nothing new to the district. It's happened numerous times since the early 80s when we had upwards of 19 buildings. And part of you know, if you look at the private sector and people say, how did the private sector operate and why can't school districts operate like that? One thing that this district's done is it's been a very nimble organization. It's right-sized itself several times to meet the declining enrollment and still be able to offer the same services, but look at different ways to offer those services with less facilities because of the needs not being there, not having as many students. And so for the first time, in a couple of decades, we have a balanced budget. It'll be balanced for more than 5 years. And what that means is we have more revenue coming in than what we're spending. And what happens with that is then we can have a cash balance. There was a point right after, or we did the last consolidation, where we were down to having, almost having to take a loan to make payroll. We had less than 5 days of operating cash in the bank, which isn't good, considering we only get our money really twice a year, big chunks in real estate, right? The rest of the time we have to be able to manage those funds to get through to the next. We established a goal when I got here with the superintendent and the board to have a balanced budget 2 years out and have 10% of our operating budget in cash. That is a standard that is set by a lot of organizations and bonding institutes that look at what is a healthy organization. By doing so, we're able to free up and maintain long enough so that we can do a project like this. Whereas rather than having, as Mike said, an operating levy, we can put that money into facilities. By putting into facilities and reducing the number of facilities we could generate $2.1 million in operating savings. Not only generating those savings, but as Mike said, we had $14 million in permanent improvement costs that need to be done right now just to keep our buildings operating. That would not be to bring up the facilities to the optimal levels or even to levels of some of our other communities. It'd be just to continue their operation. One example of that is in this building that we're sitting right now, we had a number of chillers go down this year. We just got 2 quotes because we don't have a choice. Those need to be replaced right now, and it's going to top $250,000 for just those 2 chillers. We're thankful that we're able to do it in a strategic way where we can then relocate those in other buildings if this goes through. But that's just one example. When you have buildings this old, that there's continuous maintenance, and you could have major pieces of mechanical equipment fail, and how do you replace those? This project would eliminate that need for that $14 million that we have right now, plus on top of that add $2.1 million operating savings per year, which would allow us to go out even further before we need any type of operating increase in revenue.
Can you talk just briefly about bond issue and how districts can spend money that's generated through a bond?
Yeah, the bond issue is tightly regulated by not only the Auditor of State's Office of Ohio, but it's also tightly regulated by the Ohio School Facility Commission. It has to go into a separate fund. It can only be used for project-related costs. It cannot be used for any operating costs, any personnel costs, or anything like that. It has to be used specifically for the building project. All of the expenditures for that go through the Board of Education. Any change, most of the project is required to be publicly bid. So anytime we're doing a different, whether it's the plumbing, the electrical work, the HVAC work, those all go out to bid. And there's requirements on, they're all closed sealed bids. They come in, they're open when all the contractors are there. We go through the specs, and so it's all completely separate. This would be for 37 years. That's an estimate. Those of you that 20 years ago, there was a levy passed, I'm sorry, it was 1994 it was passed, I believe, and that was for a set period of time. And over that period of time, we collected enough revenue, the county did, that was ended 2 years early. So that was taken off your tax duplicate last year. It should have gone for another 2 years. That's because the money for that, the money we bring in taxes can only pay for the bond principal and interest. And once that's completely paid, then that comes off the docket, off the tax duplicate.
How are all the rest of these school districts that are around us, like Cleveland, how are they building some of the schools, and where are they getting their money?
There was a big effort a number of years ago now where they took legislators around the state on school buses to show them failing school buildings. There were some school buildings in the southern part of our state that still had outhouses, did not have indoor plumbing. And so when they did that, they said that we're going to provide funding to those school districts based on their property wealth per pupil. That calculation was done when we still had what was called inventory tax. It was called TPP. That was eliminated by the legislators in 2006. It used to bring in $20 million a year for our district. We currently get a reimbursement from the state of less than $7 million, and we'll get zero by 2023. So obviously that $20 million, that property value made us a wealthier district. So these other districts, there are some funded as much as 75%. The state would give 75 cents on every dollar. Local community would give 25 cents. If you look at more recently, districts like Wadsworth, the state gave them 35% of the project if the school district came up with 65%. We're in a position where we can do a local expedited project where if we pass it, when our number comes up, they'll give us 7%. That number probably won't come up till 2022, 2023, around that time. So the state will give us about $7 million at that point for the project, because we are still considered, and they haven't done the recalculation in a while. We've had our lobbyists try and push that to have them recalculate so we can get further up the list, but that was not, the legislators were not in favor of that, nor was the governor. So we are stuck at getting our 7%. And so at some point we will get that money, which would then be set aside to maintain the buildings.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. The other thing I want to make sure that I cover is, okay, so what happens if, I don't know if that's on one of the slides or not, Christina. Okay, so people want to know what happens if we're not successful. Okay, we still have too many buildings and not enough kids. So we have Plan B. And Plan B is to have a consolidation to bring our preschool through 4th grade students into Ford Intermediate School. It's not ideal. We'll have to invest a small amount of money in creating bathroom space, primarily in classrooms for kindergarten kids. We're going to transition our 5th grade students and 6th grade students over to the middle school or middle level complex, which is now current Middle Heights Junior High School. Again, we do not have money to put new windows, doors, air conditioning, and complete HVAC in those buildings. But we'll do minor renovations over at MEC, and we'll look to see what kind of connection we can have between those two buildings. And we'll have to have some discussions around how do we get those funds. Do you use funds from your operating side, which is not ideal? It's not how that money is to be really primarily spent. Or the district has to go out and see whether or not they can get additional revenue through loans or something so that that can happen. We will not do any work at Big Creek. We will do no work here at the high school. We're going to consolidate. We don't need the same number of buildings, and we have to stop spending money on buildings when we should be spending money on programs for our kids. Same reason we did the consolidation before. When we consolidated high schools, we didn't eliminate programs. We offered more programs for our kids. Okay? And that's what we're spending our money on, the kids. At the end of the day, the goal is to upgrade our current classrooms and learning technologies to ensure that our kids are college and career ready. We're going to improve the property values within our community. We know with new buildings and renovated schools that people are interested in coming and looking, young families moving into communities, and one of the first things they look at is whether or not they like the school district, right? And when they drive down the street and they see a brand new high school, or they see a brand new elementary school, or they see Grindstone Elementary School, or renovated Big Creek, or a state-of-the-art middle-level complex, people will want to move into our communities. It enhances the communities. We want our buildings to be destinations, and we want our communities to be the same. We obviously talked about enhancing the community's image and reputation. We have an incredible resource here. We have wonderful communities that our kids live in. And the resources we have here are awesome, right? But we need to now invest in our schools so that we have great communities and great schools. Strong communities and strong schools, which is our, you'll see in the campaign stuff. Prolong the use of the existing schools that are going to be renovated. Maintain the excellent quality of education for the Berea City School District students that they currently receive. Listen, at the end of the day, I can come up here and I can tell the story, and I've told this story many, many times, and some of you I've seen at all of these events or many of these events, and I'm grateful that you're here because you're really understanding exactly what we're trying to get accomplished, and you can communicate that out to your friends and neighbors. And I've also said all along, if your friends and neighbors want more questions that you can't answer, have them call, and we can meet with them individually and talk about what we're trying to get accomplished. But I think it's important for you to also not just hear from me, right? You need to hear from our kids.
I really like being part of the Berea City School District. The teachers are great. I got a lot of friends and close peers to help me out.
I have great teachers, lots of sports and clubs and service opportunities. I learn a lot each day, and I'm excited to come to school. But when I get dressed in the morning, I gotta make sure I have a lot of options, because some classes are really hot and others are freezing.
When it does get too hot, it does definitely like make me less like focused and stuff because I'm just kind of like really uncomfortable.
When I was in music and the ceilings just started leaking.
Last year when we were going to the computer lab, everybody had to wait because everything was super slow and a lot of people's computers weren't working.
I think the teachers have done a great job of working through the challenges, but there are also so much better things that there could be for me and the other students if the school was just more up to date. Learn more about this issue by visiting www.berea.k12.oh.us.
Here to see part of our campaign that we have the gas full all the way down, and we're going to start to ramp that up. You'll start to see all kinds of things, right? You'll start to see the mailers, the walk-in drops, phone calls, all the things that go into what we think is a comprehensive campaign. The other thing is this video series, and you'll be able to hear from people other than just me in regards to what's happening in the school district. So you can visit Vote for 107, that's Facebook, we have Twitter account, we have also our votefor107.com, where you can go on there and get additional information. You can also go to our district website, right on the main page, issue 107, it breaks everything down that you can see that we went over this evening. So someone also said to me, okay, what's the elevator speech, right? It came up to be one of these, I think it was during the Berea City Council meeting that you're not going to be able to get 45 minutes out of people. You're going to need to, when you run into somebody at the grocery store or walking down the street, what are you going to say? Why should they support issue 107 on November 8th? And it's really simple, okay? We have older buildings that have significant needs. Here's the choice. You can either support the building of new schools and renovations of new schools to support our children. Not only the children that are in the schools today, the children that will be in the school 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. That's what we're saying. Okay? That's why we're out here doing this. At the end of the day, after 2020, many of us in this system won't be around much longer, right? So it's going to be available for kids way beyond just the people that are working in our schools today. So that's the story, and that's why we're out here trying to make sure that everybody understands what we're trying to get accomplished.